Thanksgiving at my Aunt Maggie's old house was freaky. It felt like a normal holiday until the power cut out. We were all in the dark, and my uncle joked about it being like a ghost story. But then we heard this scratching noise outside. It sounded like someone was dragging their nails on the walls. Something was outside, and we had no idea what it was. But then, my youngest cousin, Timmy, started freaking out, saying he was really scared. My uncle decided to check things out. So we're waiting, and my uncle doesn't come back. My aunt's getting worried, saying it's not like him to stay out that long. But then, out of nowhere, there's this huge bang from the back of the house. Everyone's hearts nearly stopped. My cousin Jake says he'll go check it with me. We grab another flashlight and head towards the back door. As we get closer, we see the door is wide open, which is just weird because we never leave it like that, especially not in November. So, we step outside, calling for my uncle. We're shining the flashlight around and there's nothing. But then, we hear something in the bushes. Jake goes to check it, and that's when things get real weird. It's a person, all dirty and looking scared out of his mind. We first thought it was my uncle, but no. It's some stranger. He keeps saying he's lost and needs help. So, we're all freaked out but can't just leave him out there. We bring him inside thinking we should call for help. But then we remember the phones are dead. The guy's talking about being chased, but won't say by what. I honestly thought he was just drunk because there always were a lot of those hillbillies drunk on moonshine in that area. But then, we hear footsteps above. Jake grabs a kitchen knife and we start walking up the stairs. I keep thinking, this can't be real, right? But it was. So Jake and I are upstairs now, and what we see scared the shit out of me. There's someone standing there, but his face is all messed up. So Jake tackled the guy. It was just my uncle in some creepy mask, laughing about how he scared us. But then we hear a loud noise and someone screaming downstairs. We run down and see the stranger lying on the floor. My Aunt Maggie is standing there with a baseball bat. She's not someone you mess with. She knocked him down before he could do anything with his knife. It turns out this guy thought he could rob us. We called the cops and they took him away. Now every old house or a stranger reminds me of that night. I hate Thanksgiving to this day, honestly. Last Thanksgiving, I invited a new coworker to join my family dinner. The dinner was going great, but then he started telling these weird stories about his past Thanksgivings, stories that were a bit too creepy. So I tried to change the subject, but each time he'd steer it back. I wanted to ask him to leave, but my politeness got the better of me. So I sat there wondering what else he was hiding. But my family members started being uneasy as they listened to the coworker. So I had tried to lighten the mood. I suggested we play a game, thinking it would loosen up the conversation. To my surprise, he agreed and suggested we play 2 truths and a lie. It seemed like an okay idea, because everyone was actually creeped out by now and trying to hide it. So we went around the table, sharing some anecdotes and made up stories. Everyone started to look relaxed again. That is, until it was the coworker's turn. The first thing he said was something about his childhood pet. Don't really remember what it was. Something about it running away. The second was a fact about his college days. Said that he was the team's quarterback. But the third thing he said sent a chill down my spine. He said, I once had dinner with a family, and by the end of the night, they had all vanished without a trace. So everyone laughed nervously, assuming it was his lie. But then he looked at me and he said, your turn to guess which one is the lie. I didn't know what to say, but before I said anything, someone knocked on the door. I went to see who it was. My heart was pounding. So I opened the door and there was a police officer. He asked if we saw the coworker. Said that the police needed to ask him some questions about several missing persons. I stood there, frozen. The officer noticed my hesitation and asked if he was inside. So I led him to the dining room. The moment we entered, the coworker stood up and said, It seems my past has finally caught up with me. The room was silent. Everyone was in shock. The officer moved to arrest him, but before he could, the co-worker began to laugh. He then turned to me and said, "You should have guessed. I never lie about my past." My knees got weak when I heard what he said. The officer handcuffed him, but he said one more thing. "I enjoy being a part of families just for a night, to feel that warmth and connection. But I can't leave any loose ends." My mother fainted. I felt sick with fear. I invited a murderer into my home. I got invited to a Thanksgiving dinner at a colleague's house, but as soon as I arrived, I felt something was off. The house was way out in the countryside, older and more isolated than I expected. So, I tried to shrug off the feeling and be polite. But during dinner, the conversation turned strange, with them asking oddly personal questions about my life and family. I tried to engage in small talk, but it didn't help at all. So I went into the kitchen for some water. I probably shouldn't, but I tiptoed up the stairs. The upper floor was mostly dark. The only light was coming from a cracked door at the end of the hallway. So I looked inside the room. It was filled with strange symbols and old books scattered everywhere. In the center, there was a map of the area with pins marking specific locations. I looked closer, and when I saw that my own house was marked on that map, I knew that I had to leave. Suddenly, someone grabbed me and covered my mouth with his hand. It wasn't one of my colleagues. It was one of the guests that sat with us at the table before. He said to my ear, "You need to leave. They aren't who they seem." So once he let go off me, we decided that we needed to escape. I told everyone that we were going to smoke a bud and quickly left the house. I got to my car and I saw that all of my tires are flat. So I decided to make a run for it through the woods, the stranger leading the way. To this day, I don't know what made me trust that complete stranger, but it felt like instincts were leading me at that point. The woods were dense and disorienting. I kept following him. All of a sudden, we could hear them. They followed us to the forest. Panic kicked in. I didn't know who to trust, the stranger or the colleagues. Just as we thought we were lost, we saw a road ahead. So we ran towards it, but my colleagues were waiting there. They were very angry. I realized that this situation was far more dangerous than I had anticipated. We ran deeper into the woods. We ran onto a road and stopped a car that drove us to the police station. At the station, we explained everything to the officers. It turned out that my colleagues had been under investigation for suspicious activities, including luring outsiders to their gatherings. The stranger was an undercover officer who had infiltrated the group. The police took my statement and assured me they would handle the situation. The whole family was arrested and I was escorted home. That was the worst day of my life. I don't know what would have happened if not for him.